Well, I think we've heard today so far from the academic part of this, and also from the practical side, given the Commission's work. And a large part of what I'm going to talk about today comes from the practical side, but we've looked at the Commission's work, and I applaud them today, and I've applauded them publicly. Had we implemented even parts of that of those recommendations, we'd be in a totally different situation today. So we don't have all the answers, but I would like to address from a practical standpoint the implications of what is possible with reforming our immigration system. First, the RAISE Act is reforming American immigration for a strong economy. So I'm going to give you a very practical perspective on the data that you have heard so far, and frankly, agree with. I don't have any differing opinion about the data. It speaks for itself. But I want to talk about the subject matter itself. First of all, immigration has several dimensions to it. First, it's a national security issue. Secondly, it's an economic issue, as we've proven over the last 230 years of our history as America. And then thirdly, it's a humanitarian, has humanitarian dimensions to it as well. There are some 65 million refugees around the world, as Michael just noted. I've been to many of these refugee camps in the Middle East. I just got back from Afghanistan, and I lived in Hong Kong and Europe during my career, so I have sort of a perspective, and even Eastern Europe recently, looking at the refugee pipeline into Europe and seeing the issues of how Europe has approached it, how Canada has approached immigration, how Australia has approached it. And these are countries that have large percentages of immigrants every year, in many cases larger percentages than ours. And we've looked at how they were dealing with those. But we took it into context. We tried to put it into context as it relates to national security, economic needs, and also humanitarian needs. But what we tried not to do, and this is differing. This differs from what maybe the Commission did and what a lot of people have done in the Congress. And this is a disease in Washington that I can critique as an outsider. Typically, what Washington tries to do over in Congress is to try to solve the comprehensive problem. And there are three dimensions of the immigration problem today, and I call it a problem because it really is. Number one, you have the legal situation that Jessica talked about very articulately in terms of the numbers. We're bringing in a little over 1 million people today, almost 1.1 million. That's about twice what our historical 100-year average is, but that's not the issue today. The numbers are not the issue. The second dimension is the temporary work visa. There's about 2.2 million visas issued every year, and yet we have pockets in there where people in business say we can't get enough workers. And what Michael's talking about, what Mark addressed as well, is this unusual paradigm here where we have jobs that can't be filled and we have workers who can't find work. And I look at that very simply. I think it's a mismatch of skills, and so I'll get to that in a minute. But the third piece, the third dimension of our immigration problem is the illegal situation. And so three times in the last 11 years, Congress has tried to solve all three of these at the same time in a comprehensive sweeping bill, and they failed. And these were well-intentioned people. They were bipartisan for the most part. They got to bipartisan solutions. And quite frankly, had any of those been adopted, our situation would be quite different today. Now, I don't agree with everything that each of those bills did, but I certainly don't agree with doing nothing. You think about it, we haven't done anything since 1990. That's almost 30 years ago. In 1965 to 86, China was in a cultural revolution. I mean, they didn't even come out publicly trading until the late 80s when Deng Xiaoping said, you know, get rich is glorious. And we see the world change so dramatically here. In 1990, the internet really wasn't used for the most part. And so what we have is an entirely different world now with immigration system in the United States that does not meet the needs of our country, nor the needs of the people who are around the world needing help. Our act is very simple. I want to go through the pillars of this. And by the way, this is just one piece of what I think is the ultimate solution here. But you have to start with a high ground, and that's what we've tried to do. We looked at other countries. We tried to find best practices, and we really liked what was recommended in the study back in the 90s, the Jordan Commission. In many respects, we're recommending what we're talking about here today. Now, there are some parts where we differ. But this is going to be a negotiation. What we're trying to do, though, again, is to bring this back to what we think can be a practical solution on the legal side. And that means that temporary work visas and H-2As, H-2Bs, H-1Bs, and so forth need to be separated in terms of what we are going to do there. Right now, though, what we have is a system that is a merit-based system it moves to a merit-based system to evaluate people who want to apply for citizenship. Now, let's recognize that the green card in America is the gold standard of immigration around the world. It just is. When I was a graduate student, I remember in engineering that, most of my, or a lot of my compatriots there were foreign nationals. They got their diploma, they got a green card, they got a job, and they've been productive citizens of the United States ever since. That's part of the American dream. So what we're trying to do is look at the things that make people contributory into our economy, as well as we leave a refugee category in there. We eliminated, in this proposal, we eliminate what is called the diversity visa lottery. I don't like that term because it was never really successful at its original mission. And as Michael said, we don't need to get into that today, but I call it the green card visa program because of what it is. And today, let me talk about that just for a minute. Even CIS has called out that, for example, Iran is the third, we give Iran the third most green card visas or green card situations of any country that we give in the green card visa program or visa lottery. Iran, the third most. And 30% of all visas given out in the green card or the diversity visa lottery program are given to countries who have been identified by ICE as being sources of terrorists. And so this is a major national security issue, and we take it out. We eliminate it in our proposal. There are skill-based, merit-based skills that we want to look at. Basically, it's education, job, age, investment, accomplishment, and English. And there's a 100-point base system. And again, this is totally negotiable. In fact, I would argue that the two people who are sponsoring this, Tom Cotton and myself, are among the most conservative in Congress on this immigration issue. And yet, we have a totally workable situation relative to the structure of what we're trying to recommend, as well as what we might have to do in some other areas to get a negotiated settlement with people on the other side of our aisle. And we have those discussions underway today. This bill is pro-worker, it's pro-growth, and it's been proven to work. 72% of Americans support an immigration system that is limited to the worker and to the worker's immediate family. 72%. I challenge you to find another topic where you can get 70% of Americans to agree. This is not Washington State, this is Pulse, and they've done this repeatedly. 57% of Americans support a merit-based immigration system. This is widely popular out in America, and they believe it protects our national security and our economic interest, and it protects American workers. Today, in the current system, we bring in a little over 1 million people. Of that, 140,000 are designated as workers, and so they are looked at as their worker, as their skills to some degree, their ability to work. The practical nature of that is only 70,000 come in based on their skills to work. The other 70,000 of the 140 are pretty much immediate family. So what that means is the remaining 950,000 people are being the people there, and I think Mark said this, but maybe Michael said it, that we're letting historical immigrants determine who future immigrants are going to be under this system, 950,000 people a year. And I would argue that that's just not contributory to an economy in the situation we're in today. And so this is a system that absolutely is screaming to be reformed. That's what we're proposing here. You hear the DACA solution being thrown out right now, given the president's, and by the way, I support what the president did in terms of declaring that this was not something that the executive branch should decide. This is something the legislative branch should decide, and now we have some till early March to get this done. And so there's all sorts of suppositions being thrown out there that, well, we'll do a DACA deal to get the end-of-year spending bill done, or we'll do a debt ceiling and for DACA and all this. Well, I don't even know what a DACA solution is yet. You know, I hear some people talk about dreamers, some people talk about DACA and so forth. But what we're trying to do is engage to make something happen to where we can get a solution on the legal immigration side. But I will say this publicly, and I've said it before: no solution on DACA, in my opinion, can be concluded without the inclusion of RAISE and the end of chain migration in America. And with that, Mark, I'll stop. I know you want to take some questions, but it's an honor to be here, and I appreciate the interest in this so critical topic.